if you look across our portfolio, most of our hotels are in places that have great destination marketing already: Stowe, Vermont, Martha's Vineyard, Newport, Rhode Island, Asheville, North Carolina. And our job as a marketing organization and management organization is to direct people when they're already a little bit further down the funnel, getting ready to make their choice about where to stay.
How do you do that?
Oh, that's really secret.
Today, we're sitting down with Rob Blood, founder of Lark Hotels. Lately, it seems everybody's running into the independent, boutique, unique hotel space. Rob's been doing it for over 20 years. We're going to find out how you can make money with only 9 rooms and how you turn those independent properties into Michelin-rated hotels. Thanks for joining. Rob Blood, thank you for joining me today. This was fun for me. You're sort of new to the not to the industry, but new. You're a very successful outsider, if I could say that.
It's a good way to put it. I appreciate the outsider role.
Founder of Lark Hotels. Did I get that right?
You got it. Yeah.
I'm going to call you owner and mastermind and creative genius and all of that stuff as well.
So, I'll make sure my team hears that. That's really good.
Yeah, because again, it's not us, right? It's a team. Okay, so my teeing up, one, obviously you want to find out about who is Rob Blood, but my tee up is, for those of us who don't know Lark, give me some core, who is Lark?
Sure. Yeah. So at the root, Lark is a third-party manager, right? Lark doesn't own anything. We have like maybe a desk chair and a couple computers that we actually own on our balance sheet, but we are a third-party management company that is a family of brands that we support. And when I say brand, I see your face and I'm thinking like
a lot of questions now.
Yeah, what is brand? Okay, so we only manage at the moment independent hotels. And there are some independent hotels that in our portfolio that are part of one of our brands. And our brands are Lark Hotels, which to the rest of the world, I would say, think about the Autograph Collection. These are all independently conceptualized hotels that have their own identity, but they fly under a collection brand called Lark Hotels. It's upper upscale. They all have a story. They're all bespoke. They're all very, very nice. So that's our primary brand. Within that, we have Blind Tiger. We're honored to have all 4 of our Blind Tigers be awarded Michelin Keys this year. Blind Tigers are small. They're in highly cultural cities: Asheville, North Carolina, Portland, Maine, Burlington, Vermont. And they have a very high RevPAR, very good occupancy, very strong rate, and tightly controlled expenses, but are just like gorgeously designed to make you feel like you're staying at your most well-connected friend's home in that city. So Lark, Blind Tiger. We have Bluebird by Lark, which is our upper mid-scale family-focused brand. If you were putting it up against a Marriott hotel, it would be in the same comp set as a Courtyard, but very individually designed, very bespoke, and in sort of secondary markets. So middle of Cape Cod, Hunter, New York, up by Mount Sunapee in New Hampshire. But those are all repurposed existing hospitality properties: motels, hotels, ski lodges. They're conversions. Okay. It's our conversion brand. And then we have AWOL, which we call Untamed Luxury. And AWOL is about where nature and hospitality come together. It's not like a crunchy brand. It's like I would say nature adjacent, right? So think about people who want to be close to nature, but want all of the frills and benefits of being at a property that has luxurious amenities. Like in Stowe, it's a Nordic spa. In P-Town, it's a huge front yard with a beautiful pool looking out over the ocean. And then we have an independent, we call it Lark Independent. And these are properties that we manage without one of our brands. And so it may be that they want to fly on their own. It may be that they don't necessarily meet any particular brand standard. But we have this family of properties, and they are all managed with the same philosophy. And so Lark, I think it's not it, use your imagination about what Lark as a management company is, because it does everything every other management company does. We run the hotels, turnkey, and but we do it with a really strong sense of storytelling and brand and identity. I think the other cool thing that we have that differentiates us a little bit from other folks is we have an affiliate design company called Elder and Ash, which designed 6 of the 7 Michelin Key hotels.
Oh.
And so that's a JV with me and my wife. Uh, I've never referred to it that way, actually. But she and I are partners in the design business. We started that about 7 years ago. So we design for Lark, but we also work with outside
As
clients.
long as she agrees with it, you're fine. How many
Sure.
employees in that? Is it just two?
Oh, that's 6. We
Yeah.
so it's we have a studio in Brooklyn where we have a couple designers, and then it's us. We have, I think, 80 corporate employees at Lark now.
Yeah, I mean, you're all grown up. That's a legit operation.
Yeah, it's a pretty big scale.
Yeah, you got to do that to get Michelin Keys.
I guess so.
I think why you ended up here, amongst other things, is it just came out. I gotta compliment you and drop this. They just came out with the 2024 Michelin, ratings, and you have 7 of them, 7 of your properties, not just
Yeah,
one.
it was a really delightful surprise. And honestly, I really never know how to respond or react when we receive that kind of recognition, because it's not our goal, right? Our goal is just to do good work and create experiences and beautiful properties and great spots. But it's really nice, a nice recognition for our team to receive such prolific honors.
Yeah, it's good motivation for everybody too. And listen, you worked hard, you earned it, so you should enjoy it. All right, so dive in without further ado. Who is Rob Blood, and how did you end up in this joyous hospitality industry?
Hopefully, by the end of the conversation, you'll have a glimpse of that kind of answer. But I guess my path to hospitality was in some ways through my parents. I'd always been drawn to experience creation from a time as a little kid, and I was also drawn to architecture. And not in the way that I can use CAD or Revit, but in the way that when I was 5 years old, I was designing houses and drawing and that kind of thing. And I had a very profound experience in my mid 20s when my father passed away just before he turned 50.
Sorry to hear that.
And in conversations with my mom after that, she talked a lot about how they had been planning to retire in 5 years, and then they would do, this, and this. And one of those thises was potentially, get into a bed and breakfast. And so at the time I was working in education, and I uh, obviously in a life moment like that, when your dad passes away when you're 25, it makes you think about, well, how do I plan my life so that I don't have to wait 5 years to retire to do what I really want to do? And at that point, I started thinking about it. And when I was a college student, I used to ski at this mountain called Sugarloaf up in middle of nowhere, Maine. And my ski bum buddies and I couldn't afford to go out to eat. And yet there was this old roadhouse called the Red Stallion Inn in the valley that we kind of started collaborating on and dreaming of reopening one day.
Yeah.
Affordable microbrewery, outdoor center, all the stuff that probably would never have made any money, but was fueling our soul. And so we didn't do that. The building was condemned. It ended up getting knocked down, but it was the seed, right? So the seed happened in college. The motivation happened when my dad passed away when I was out of college. And then kind of we took the leap of moving to Nantucket, which is not a hardship, right? But I left my job, applied for an innkeeper position on Nantucket, which included housing in the basement of the inn, some breakfast food, and a very, very, very low salary. But I had it was the good life, right? I was living on Nantucket. I was hosting people who really wanted to be there. I was working with my girlfriend at the time, and we learned a lot about it, right? Hospital corners, ironing sheets, baking the muffins. Cool thing was the guy who owned it was a Harvard Business School graduate who ran it like a business instead of a hobby. This was 2002. Teague. I think it was a while ago now. Um, and at the time, people were retiring into bed and breakfast to create a nest egg or some kind of retirement plan. But no one, and I can't say no one, but people, no one that I was aware of was really treating it like a business that they could grow and make it a sustainable life. And so that was my earliest experience that really led to everything that I'm doing today.
All right, so how do we go? We went from an innkeeper, and this
Right.
guy's trying to make money. Did he make money on that? Was that how you learned? He showed you how to
He
make money?
did, yeah. So he obviously made enough money to hire someone else to do it for him, right?
Sure, well said.
Albeit at a very low wage. Uh, uh, like my girlfriend and I were literally the free food people on Nantucket. We go to art gallery openings to get the cheese and the crackers and the wine because
Hysterical.
we couldn't afford food. Um, but yeah, so we started out on Nantucket. We found out very quickly that we were not going to be able to create an affluent life as an employee of an 8-room inn. But we did find out, sort of that, like, the thing that everyone in real estate knows is that basis and location are so important,
Yes.
right? And so we kind of thought that if we could find a really inexpensive inn along a side road in somewhere in New Hampshire, like buy it for $300,000, one of us work outside, one of us work at the inn, that we could make it work. But what we learned on Nantucket is that if we could stretch and capitalize a more expensive, better located inn, that we could make it work financially. And I'm using words that we never would have used at the time, right? Like, I've learned a lot along the way. Um, but yeah, that Nantucket experience shaped my perspective on small hospitality, and gave me an education that I never would have gotten by going to Cornell, which is why I give all the hoteliers a hard time whenever I talk to them.
Sold. Give him
You
a
know,
shot. I'm
yeah.
okay with that.
But I think I would say that everything that I've learned it by doing and from other people and in conversations like this. I'm a sponge for knowledge, and I learned a lot in that 1 year on Nantucket that transitioned into owning my first small inn in Kennebunkport, Maine.
Oh, excellent. So we've all went in Kennebunkport. How did we buy that one? How many rooms?
So it was 9. It is still 9. We still own it.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's part of a larger collection, but we we had talked about buying the inn that we ran on Nantucket from the owners. They were going to owner finance it, and we got cold feet about living out there. Um, but it shaped our vision of what we were looking for: small, A+ location in the $1.5 million range. And so we found this 9-room inn in Kennebunkport that was being run beautifully. Didn't need anything except maybe new life. And we convinced my mother to invest the down payment. And I say invest because her terms were 10-year repayment at 6% interest. And at the time, like, interest rates were around 5. So she wasn't doing it. I mean, she was doing it because she loved us, but wasn't doing it as a gift.
Probably your toughest sales job ever. Your best sales job you did.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, it was my best by far.
Yeah.
It was a sales job for sure, because it was a big risk for her, right? 9-room inn, Kennebunkport, her son, whose only experience was being an English teacher and then running an inn for a year. Um, Her friends told her not to do it.
Of
You
course.
know, my dad's former classmates said, "Hey, Ellen, no way, don't do that." But she did. And we got an SBA loan and we got conventional financing. So it was literally day one was 100% leveraged. But it was June 1st. So it was June 1st at the beginning of the busy season,
Oh, great.
right? So we closed on it, took the advance deposits, and never had to put a single dollar that we had outside of in into it. We were able to reinvest, um, and it was incredibly successful. So we drove the revenue from 300,000 to 500,000 top line in the course of a year and a half. Continued to reinvest. It was spinning off cash, and that was our seed. That was like what started it all, because we were able to use proceeds from that to invest in the next one, and figured out what our Nantucket bosses figured out, which was eventually, if you do it right, you can begin to scale and hire other people to be on site.
How quickly did you get the second property?
The second property was actually an investment with the people who we worked for on Nantucket. So that was in 2006. First one was June of 2004. The second was an investment in a place called the Veranda House on Nantucket, which actually TPG owns now. We sold to them
Okay.
when they started getting into small hotels. So that was 2006. And then it took a while. It was 2012 when the next two came along. But there was a lot of interesting learning during the 6 years in between.
So I love this. So keep going. And how do we get to as many as we have now? And
That was magic, I think. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
So in 2012, we was able to buy a property called the Atwater. It was called the Atwater Villa in Newport, Rhode Island. And it's a 12-room building that had a burned out house next to it with 5 more keys. And so same thing, SBA, conventional financing. This time my mother said, I'm not giving you debt. I want to invest equity because she saw the success. And so she and my sister and I invested in the Atwater. And I was not a sophisticated deal guy back then. I was not getting to promote or anything like that. I basically was pari passu. You invest a dollar, you own a dollar's worth. And so we bought that for $1,000,001. And I renovated myself with one other guy. And it was a distressed property, a distressed owner. I was starting to learn a little bit more about the hotel world then. And we also bought another place on Nantucket with our partners out there. So we had 4. And that's when I started Lark, really as a marketing organization for these 4 properties in Nantucket, Newport, and Kennebunkport, Maine. I thought this is a pretty good start with these locations to do something, right? And our idea was that there's really no place in the country that is the history of hospitality like New England. It goes back to the pre-Revolutionary War, but it had gotten a little stale and a little dusty. I think doilies and flower wallpaper and porcelain dolls and that kind of stuff, and innkeepers that sit at breakfast with you.
Yeah, I can picture it.
Yeah, not a great picture in your head, right?
Right.
So our thesis was we can modernize this. We can create something on a small scale with a modern sensibility that really was non-prescriptive. The idea was we wanted guests to experience the stay and their vacation on their own terms without us overlaying rules or expectations or itineraries on them. And we want them to do it in a setting that makes them feel like they are where they are today, not in the 17 or 1800s. And so modern sense of place, but still a strong sense of place, eye to eye hospitality. And the other tenant at the time was breakfast anytime, because I was like 28. And if I wanted to take a day off and sleep late, I still felt like I should be able to get breakfast like
Sure.
at noon.
Sure.
And so that's how it started. It was those 4 properties. And the Atwater, the year we opened, one was on the Condé Nast hot list. And so we were training our staff, and that the same day we started training our staff, we were on the Today Show, and the phone just started ringing. And then the hot list came out, and the phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And that was really the beginning of our success, is when we found the intersection of like great PR and media outreach, good product, like a good hospitality philosophy. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but the idea of how you keep expenses tight on small assets so you can drive bottom line. So that all came together.
Let's talk about how do you keep expenses tight? That's where my brain is. I'm like, how's you making money on 9 rooms without physically doing it yourself, right? You're doing
Yeah.
it. Your girlfriend's working one room and the friends, buddies working the other. The kids are working. Like, that's what we know.
Yeah. Yeah,
How,
you're sleeping on the floor in the back room, all this stuff.
so how can you do this in mass and grow?
It's really important to understand that you cannot do it in every circumstance, right? You can't. Like going back to what we were talking about earlier, that 10-room inn on the side of the road in New Hampshire would never have worked.
Right.
Top line is a big factor in this whole equation. So we have targeted markets with high rate, high barriers to entry, and the middle of the budget was what I learned to really control in 2008, 2009. You had to know that a square of toilet paper was more cost effective from Sam's Club versus Cisco versus Shaw's down the street, right? So literally to that like square, when you're running small properties, you have to keep an eye on the margins. And so and when we had four, it was sort of me controlling everything, right? I could really compress things if economies turned down a little bit. Now we do it through a really strong set of centralized services. So, at a 200 room Hilton Garden Inn, there's probably a controller on site. There's a revenue manager that's managing a couple of the owner's properties. And if you put that on a 9 room inn, all of the bottom line's gone, right? It's all gone. Even if you put it on a 95 room hotel, sometimes it
Right.
makes things disappear. And so Lark was built to create the back office for small hotels.
How many of the assets that you own or that you manage or a third party
So
managed, and how many do you own?
there are, we have give or take 53, 54 properties in our portfolio. I've got an ownership piece of 22 of them. Um, the and it ranges from very, very, very small to half,
Yep.
because
Yep.
I've gotten smarter about deals now. So we have private equity investors and we have other investors. And so, when you do a private equity deal, you own a little bit
Yes.
until eventually, hopefully you own a lot more. We manage almost, we're getting close to call it $1 billion worth of real estate, $100 million of top line revenue. So it's not a tiny game anymore. It's pretty prolific.
Well said. Wait, all right. A lot of questions. What's the rate that you got to get? Like, I agree it's all in rate. I'm like, he's got to charge $1,000 plus a night. Like, what's the rev par? And if you tell me you don't do rev par, I'm gonna chuckle.
No,
So,
no. I mean, RevPAR is obviously the most important metric. Um,
what's the magic sauce? What do you got to be above? Is there a magic sauce? You got to be above.
so it's market driven, basis driven, right? So I think if we just talk about, we have Blind Tiger, which is 9 rooms in Portland, Maine.
Great.
I'll give you the case study. We bought it for $1.7 million at auction. It's a beautiful federal style mansion. It does about 120 a key in top line revenue. So $120,000, 1.2 million on an annual basis.
Yep.
It's run by 4 women who are Portland natives. They're hosts. They all work every position. Um,
They there when
and
before you bought it?
no, so actually, Tamara, who's our lead, had worked at other properties of ours before. She was actually in Salem at an 11 room property, and she's from Portland, so she jumped to go back, and they crush it, right? They just crush it. Plus, Portland, Maine is one of the hottest markets in the country. Great food scene, um, a good amount of inventory, but it lacks properties that speak to the culture of the city. And so we're able to, we drive a $600 average daily rate, about 70% occupancy, and it works, right? So it just doesn't work for everyone, though. That's the lesson, right? Not you can't just do it. You have to have the right resources to make it possible.
I agree with all that. And the people, which we all have heard over and over again. It also doesn't hurt when you buy it for $1 million and your top line revenue is $1 million too, if I heard
Yeah,
that.
well, it was 300 when we bought it.
Okay.
So and the cool thing was, this is one we just should have bought by ourselves. Like, it could be our house now if we wanted to be. It's an amazing piece of real estate, but the auction was in about 3 days and I needed a check for 700,000. So I called our private equity partners and we just did it. Right. So we did it quickly. We couldn't get in, but we had been in before. And it had gotten into trouble because the owners had tried to open a restaurant in the space and put a lot of emphasis on that. And that's another lesson. F&B is tough, right? We all know. Yeah, We just decided to be smart. We were going to renovate it on a small budget, but do it really well. So my design firm, Elder Nash, designed it. It was our first Blind Tiger. We have 4 now with Michelin Keys, like you pointed out. And so we spent $108,000 renovating it. and about $200,000 on FF&E. And we opened in February of 2020. Remember that
Uh-huh.
time frame? So we opened on February of 2020 when we closed on March 17th of 2020. Um, but it was all the stuff worked out. When we reopened, it just
Yeah,
skyrocketed.
sure did. Yeah, great timing.
Yeah. So we were smart. We decided, even though we could have a restaurant there, we weren't going to. Portland has enough great restaurants. This particular place only has 9 parking spots. And so why do what you don't have to do? And it's probably one of our most successful case studies in terms of what you can do if you're smart about how you spend. And the great story was, we were able to refi it. It appraised for $6 million. We paid off our capital partner, and we have 3% debt for the next 8 years. So it's who knows? It turned out well.
I love it. All right, so now I want to go to the restaurants. The restaurant portion of that is we literally just had on Seat Talk Steve Palmer,
Ah,
and
he's awesome.
so
Steve gets it. He knows how to do that.
that's his speech. Just for everyone that didn't watch, go watch it. Is fascinating. The first time I'd heard it from anyone was Steve. He said, "No, no, no, no. We're only about and the restaurants." And mind you, Steve is a restaurant guy, right? But he's like, "No, no, no. I build an amazing restaurant, and that's what draws people in. And then, oh, by the way, we have these hotel rooms that
Yeah.
they happen to stay in, or they don't."
Yeah.
But he's trying to build that sense of place and placemaking through the restaurant. And
And
then,
that's a great way to do it. Aperium does that as well. I was talking to Steve about this years ago before I got into hotels. I said, Steve, it's a lot harder to run restaurants than it is to run hotels. And a year later, he had a hotel company. It's like, oh, so I
and
take a little credit for Steve's journey into hotels.
right, I'm on your side. So yeah, that's how it's coming to our way. Yes.
But Steve does it so well. I think that's part of his pitch when he's getting into hotel management contracts is you have an operator that really understands F&B. And we get hotels too, because that's easy. That's for dummies, right? That's like, put the heads in beds. And if we can create an experience over the course of 2 hours for a meal, of course we can make a good impression over 24 hours or 48. But we have 14 restaurants.
Okay.
Um, and I love them all. We have been very careful about the types of restaurants that we operate, and we are emphatic that we never do it for ego, right? We believe that if you have F&B in a hotel, it should be its own revenue center and profit center, that it should not just be accretive to the ADR growth. If you have a business, you want your business to be profitable. So that's how we approach it, which is why out of 53 hotels, we only have 14 restaurants. And I also believe a little bit differently than Steve is people are, let's use Martha's Vineyard as an example. People are choosing to go to Martha's Vineyard. They're making a decision. They're saying, I'm going to go there for the summer. And then they start looking at what they're going to do and where they're going to stay. And so as an organization, we've always felt that it's not necessarily our job to be a destination marketing organization, but it is our job to attract more eyes once they decide they're going to go there. And so if you look across our portfolio, most of our hotels are in places that have great destination marketing already: Stowe, Vermont, Martha's Vineyard, Newport, Rhode Island, Asheville, North Carolina. And our job as a marketing organization and management organization is to direct people when they're already a little bit further down the funnel, getting ready to make their choice about where to stay.
How do you do that?
Oh, that's really secret. No, I mean, I think that it's one of the reasons we've been successful is because we operate in a lot of markets where we're competing with owner operators that are out over their skis because they're making breakfast in the morning, they're doing the laundry, just what I used to do at the Sherburne Inn on Nantucket. And so because we have a larger organization, we have a 7-person marketing team and 8 revenue managers and just kind of what you would expect. And so we're able to do that. We use a few different firms, digital marketing firms and meta search firms that help us get eyes on our properties when our competitors are washing dishes and doing the good work of innkeeping. in a lot of markets, but just don't have the time to spread themselves
Yeah,
into
that
other
makes
spots.
and I want to ask you about your people because then we know that's the secret sauce of everyone, including example the four ladies up in Portland, Maine. But you probably have four ladies somehow in all 53 of your assets
Yeah, in a way.
that have dialed into all of that, including the 8 revenue managers and marketing team that are just funneling into it. So talk to me about, I don't know, leadership and how you're attracting the people and keeping them because their tenure's got to be forever. Is my
It's long. It is. Yeah, it's long, which is amazing. And Peter joined. Peter Twachtman, who's our CEO, was a friend of mine for 7 years before we joined forces at Lark. And I recognized at the time that we were about to take a step that my best service to the company wasn't trying to create systems and structure and sound accounting practices. My best service was in the space of experience creation, creating beautiful hotels, and creating a growth strategy. And so Peter has a very, very analytical mind. And I actually asked him to join the company maybe 4 years in. He was the chief operating officer for Migas Hotels, which is a small group in Maine. And he said, I'm not quite ready. I don't think Lark is ready yet either. And let's keep in touch. And over the next 3 years, we became really close. Our families became very close. And right before COVID, we didn't know COVID was coming. He said, I think I'm ready. And I said, I'm ready, but I want to be the CEO. I said, okay, I'm ready for that too. And I always say I get to work with my two best friends. Peter is our CEO, and my wife, Megan, is our creative director. And so what Peter has done as we've grown and doubled in size, as he's really shored up our systems, all the boring stuff, boring stuff to me, but it's fascinating. Like, we have an incredibly strong accounting department, incredibly strong marketing, revenue management, HR, all of the pieces that fuel our success. Peter has tuned up, brought in good people, created good systems to support our properties. And so we created this leadership team, as I'm sure you have, that support all of the good work that's done on property for the owners, for the guests. Everything we do is about people. It's the people who are staying with us, the people who are hosting them, the people who are supporting the hosts, the owners that own the properties. It all comes down to people and keeping them happy.
I got to get up to one of your properties. I got to add that to my list of things to do.
Yeah, coming up.
What's your favorite property? You got to have a favorite property. Give me your favorite property.
Well, look, my favorite kid in my family is whatever kid I'm with at the moment.
Yes.
And I think I'm in Stowe today, where we are just opening AWOL Stowe, and it's spectacular. We just are finishing building these 6 beautiful A-frame cabins. We've converted a vintage motor lodge into this like Nordic spa retreat that is right on the hill, and tucked into a forest. So I'm pretty excited about that right now. If you caught, yeah, I mean, if you caught me in July when I was on Block Island, I would have told you the Block Island Beach House. I guess it's what's in front of my face.
What's next? What's the next thing that's about to be in front of your face? What's next?
We're just finishing our last development project from a string of many over the last couple of years. And so I am personally going to breathe a little bit, take a moment, because it's been intense. We've developed, I don't know, I don't even know how many, but a lot of hotels in the 3% interest rate market. There were a lot of opportunities. And so we as a company, Lark as a company, has a bifurcated risk profile, right? So about half of the hotels, maybe a little bit less, I have an ownership piece in, and it's pretty good odds that I won't fire Lark from managing the hotels that I own, right? So we've got that core group. And then we have our third party portfolio that, if I go bankrupt and have to sell all my hotels, we'll still have those. And so because we've been doing a lot of development, where we've shifted a little bit towards more growth through third party management. And we've got a whole bunch in the pipeline over the next year where we'll be supporting other people and doing what we love to do. So there's that.
So it's funny though, that is not a unique story. That's the story we're hearing a lot from the hoteliers, no matter what size, by big resorts, mid-size, down to you guys. Like that's a lot. Everyone was doing lots of development, if not acquisition, if not as much as they could buy when they could. And that has slowed significantly.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
wrapping up old projects and there's not a lot people have new projects, and they're certainly working on shoring up what they're doing, improving their operations, and or I don't want to say working on the business, merging with other management firms, taking in other third parties. There's a lot of that going on.
We've seen a lot of it. And I think that this is a very it's not necessarily a fun or sexy thing to talk about, but there is on the horizon, for the last 3 years, we've been predicting opportunity because people are overextended, whether it was because of COVID, now because of interest rates or resetting debt. I think, and we haven't really seen it. It hasn't materialized in a meaningful way. But I think with the rates coming down, and I do think with maturing debt, that there will be some distress that will be to the advantage of people who've been sitting on capital. And that's from,
Yes.
office buildings in San Francisco to 20-room luxury hotels. And so we've been waiting and sort of building capital and shoring up our infrastructure to be sure that we're ready for that. And also to be sure that we're in a position to support people who need help, right? Not just from a financial perspective, but a management perspective.
Sure.
And that's sort of one of my like soapbox moments is this. There are management companies that keep the trains running on time. They're really good at it. X's and O's, on-time financials. There are a lot of those. There are a lot of competitors in the world doing that. There are management companies that tell good stories, create good experiences, and help inject soul into properties. They don't usually have the same set of skills that the train engineers do. And then there are a few that are right in the middle that do both. Our early years, we were really good storytellers. We're really good train operators now. We found that middle ground that enables us to keep everything running on time, do all the X's and O's, and create experiences and tell stories. And that is, I'm super proud of that. And it took a lot of people to get us there, including our amazing VP of Finance, Allison South, because she changed our lives when she came in. And so I feel really excited about whatever is next, whether it's, a few more acquisitions or 15 more management contracts, because I'm so confident in our team now that I really want other people to get the benefit of working with them. And I'm lucky whenever I buy a hotel that there's a great team behind me to help it work, because I would have a really hard time choosing a management company if I was just a hotel owner.
Rob, that is really well said, by the way. I got to go back. That's the best I've heard that put. So kudos to you. I can see why you're successful, why people follow you. I'm so glad we did this because we don't know each other, and I would have lost the bet. You can't make money at 9 rooms. You're proving me wrong. So cheers. I'll accept that. I like learning new things all the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's really nice talking to you, and we'll see you in Atlanta.
Yeah, come to our conference. Come. I'll send you a badge. Come. You got to come to the conference.
That's great.
If I don't see you, then we're no longer friends.
Fair. All right. The gauntlet's been thrown down.
Deal. Rob, thank you. This is great.
Yeah, pleasure.